Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today on this executive roundtable. My name is Akinola from the DigiConnect team, and we are excited to have you all today. Thanks for taking the time to be part of this session today. Today, we are talking public sector innovation, and I think it's going to be an interesting session. Today's session is being hosted by our presenting partner, Opentext. Today, and we have a very interesting lineup of speakers that will be helping us drive the conversation, and we would like to also have you join the conversation as well. But before we get right into it, I just have a quick housekeeping to just share with you. Please note that if depending on where you are, it would be great to have your cameras on, but if you are somewhere that that is not possible, that is totally fine. But if you can, we would like to see your lovely faces. Also note that all participants have been muted for the purpose of this call to avoid background noises, and of course to keep everything very quiet so that we can focus on the screen with our speakers. And also we do depend on network, as you can imagine these days. So if you drop out of the call due to any reason, please note that you can join back using the same link, and our team will be happy to admit you back into the call. And last but not the least, we would like this to be as much interactive as possible. We'd like to get your questions, your comments. How do you see public sector changing? How do you see technology changing the landscape? Do you have any questions for any of the presentations from all our speakers? All of that. So we would like to have you part of it through the chat box. And if you'd like to also speak, we're happy to unmute you to be able to make your contributions verbally. Before we go on, I would like to invite Ahmad Samata, who is the country manager for Opentext, to take us in the next flow for the entire session. Ahmad will be introducing the speakers as well and taking us through the session. Hi, Ahmad.
Thank you, Akinola, for the introduction. Good morning to everyone on the call. It's a pleasure to have you here to back most of you today. And for those who are joining us for the first time, welcome. And we hope to see you in the future events again. My name is Ahmed Samater. I am the country manager for Opentext Qatar. We welcome you to our second Qatar Public Sector Innovation event. This event is going to focus on the importance of modernizing and transforming legacy systems and applications. We believe that the Qatar National Vision is a reality, and it's making it imperative for leaders to find an effective way or ways to handle legacy systems. For many organizations, legacy systems are holding back the business initiative and the line of business requirements that business departments and department owners are trying to address. When a tipping point is reached, application leaders must look to application modernization to remove the obstacles. And in today's session, we will be gaining insight from our experts, Mohammed Seer from Ernst & Young, and Brian Chedester, who is the Opentext head of worldwide industry strategy for the public sector, joining us from the US today, and discussing on how emerging technologies are shaping the modernizing process. We will also be watching a live demonstration of the Opentext Digico framework, which is designed for a fully integrated e-services framework presented by our senior solution consultant, Garrett Otto, who has been involved in many projects in Qatar like Mawazana and Hukumi, where we've done a wonderful job. And finally, we will also hear from our honorable guest, Mr. Sebastian John from Qatar Foundation, and Mr. Sami El-Khali from Ministry of Transport. And I thank you two gentlemen again for your support for this event. In the meantime, please feel free to post any questions in the chat. We will answer these at the end of the session during the Q&A. And for now, I thank you all for coming to the session and enjoy the session. And Brian, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. And I'm really grateful, as he said, to be joining you today from the United States. I'm hoping at some point in the very near future, I'll be able to get back to in person again and come over and meet you. For those that I have addressed, welcome back. For those that I haven't, I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity. I'm Brian Chidester. I'm head of worldwide industry strategy for public sector at Opentext. And as Ahmed mentioned, we're going to be talking about kind of the modernization of legacy IT systems. It is one of the things that is currently holding a lot of governments back around the world. It's a systemic challenge that a lot are facing. But there's a lot of success stories out there on how they've evolved to be able to get to a point where they can begin their digital transformation evolution and in a really meaningful way. And excited to share some of those pieces with you today. As you all know, we've all been kind of in this together. In the past 18 months, the disruption of the COVID-19 pandemic has really served as the main driver of change, not only just change, but also adoption of new emerging technologies. But it's also put an impetus on organizations and IT leaders with those challenges to reimagine how they approach their digital transformation in, I think, in not just a more meaningful way, but a more accelerated way. And there's been several changes, but I just wanted to bring to your attention 4 major ones that I think are important to address before we jump into some of these legacy IT challenges. One is security, and security, it kind of pops its head up in a lot of different areas. These legacy IT systems really inhibit and really open up security gaps for some of the IT leaders. You've probably noticed that cybercrime has been up, especially at the more localized levels of government. Ransomware has been something that's really been pervasive, but there's been some major security breaches like SolarWinds and the Microsoft Exchange hack. So security is certainly top of mind for IT professionals right now, IT leaders. And obviously digital experience. We've seen as consumers and as global consumers, retail has been up significantly, digital retail. But so has the engagement of government on the at the digital level. In fact, new visitors to global government portals are up 56% since the beginning of the pandemic. And I think that is absolutely going to remain. It's no longer something that has to remain brick and mortar. It can be digital, and that's where governments are going. Remote work. I think that's something that challenged CIOs, CTOs at the very beginning. How do I facilitate this? And a lot of governments had the infrastructure in place and a lot didn't. So it made it difficult to bridge that gap. But remote work is something, especially in a hybrid capacity, that will be here. So it's not just the technology to facilitate remote work like we're doing today on Zoom for this call, but it's how can you share information? How can you provide process automation in a hybrid work capacity? That's all something that is rising to the forefront. And then finally, collaboration, like I mentioned, again, not like just like a Teams or a Zoom call, but what does that mean for the access to data and information within your organization? Are data silos holding you back from being as efficient in a hybrid and remote work position? And that's all something, again, that needs to be addressed. And I mentioned before the accelerated change that COVID-19 has pushed, and it's really not just changed the landscape of what government leaders are faced with, but it's really put pressure on them to not only keep up with the pace to modernize, but to ensure that they have the foundational elements in place to be able to keep up with that acceleration. One of the things that that government is also pressured with is the same thing that companies around the world are doing. And it's really how they shift in becoming technology companies. And I say that because they need to understand how they can future-proof their systems and evolve and build out what that application ecosystem looks like in a more meaningful way for citizens. You want to be able to respond rapidly to the fluidity of the environment right now, and that's something that is certainly going to be top of mind for CIOs. As you take a look at innovation, one of the things that has really held government leaders back has been budget. And it's not just the amount of revenue that they've been able to put towards some of these systems, but it's the percentage of that budget. So what we've seen globally is on average, only 20% of IT budgets go towards modernization efforts, whereas 80% are really going towards the operations and maintenance of these legacy systems that aren't able to get governments to where they want to go. So when you're just maintaining the status quo and the status quo isn't the platform for innovation, you're not going to get to where you need to be. And that's something that we're looking to see change as you kind of build out that foundation. And I think this was even more telling in several reports. What we've seen is that governments are running outdated programming languages. So competencies can't even keep up with some of these things. Unsupported hardware and software, which obviously have known security vulnerabilities. I mentioned security challenges at the very beginning of this, and these legacy IT systems really can't keep up with some of the more advanced security requirements that are out there. And something that's even worse than that, there is no plan to change. And I think that is really, really telling. So I'm glad we can be having this conversation today because not only is a plan necessary, but making sure you have the right plan in place to support what your mission is. And to me, I wrote an article recently, and this is something that I really took to heart, because it's not just looking at everybody else. It's thinking about kind of how you as a citizen consume these services and kind of what tolerance you have or what I have for how I engage with government. And I think in the private sector, they're modernizing at such a rate that the expectation that I have is that when I engage digitally with any organization, private sector and public sector, I expect it to be omnichannel. I expect to be able to have it on demand 24/7. I expect it to be seamless and easy. And that's something that citizens around the world should have zero tolerance for anything less. So one of the ways that Opentext has been helping government organizations around the world to modernize this and future-proof their systems is around low code and our AppWorks platform. And before I kind of jump into the specifics around this, one of the things we're doing, and I know Garrett is going to be showing you the DigiGov platform after we get through the fireside chat, but we're not only just using low code to solve problems, but we're also adding some of our technology onto that to create solutions that are industry specific for government, whether it's to manage the grants lifecycle process or to support permits and licensing. There's a lot of different disparate technologies that Opentext has that can be added on to these platforms to create a more advanced ecosystem like e-signature, like best-in-class enterprise content management, intelligent capture. So something to keep in mind that it's not just in a vacuum. And I've mentioned before, governments are under significant pressure to provide these new services. And really up until this point, I was mentioning citizens, but it's really also the employees too. It's internally and external. You want to provide the employees internally with the automated processes that can allow them to shift from a low value to high value work. And what I mean by that is they shouldn't be spending their time doing mundane tasks, especially around things as simple as filling out permit requests and license requests. They should be able to be more strategic for citizens. And you do that by providing them with the tools internally. And I think what we've seen, especially globally, is that with this new pressure, they're increasingly adopting some of these platforms because they're allowing the organizations to future-proof their systems. And when I say future-proof, what I mean by that is, while Opentext can provide a platform that has some of these processes in place for you, really the sky's the limit. So and I mentioned the fluidity of the environment that we're in right now, as things change, you're able to evolve your platform to support the needs of your internal employees and your external citizens as well. So I think that's an important aspect and one of the main drivers of low code. We've spoken around the evolving citizen demands earlier, but I think, again, that's something that low code supports. It not only allows you to change based on these demands, but it also allows you to do it at a minimal cost. One of the things that I love about these platforms too is that because I'm not somebody who gets into the weeds on coding and things, but I do have the strategic vision and hold kind of the program guidance, I'm able to get closer to the build. So I think when you can do that, not only does it accelerate the deployment cycle, but it also allows you to get more meaningful impact into the process to ensure that the end result is exactly what you envisioned or even better. So something that's also really driving the adoption of these platforms. And a couple other benefits. One is creating proofs of concept. So I don't know how many times we've taken a look at programs where you can kind of draw it up on a whiteboard and you're trying to sell it internally. But low code is a way that you can build out these proofs of concept actually in a very rapid way to be able to show that there is application for the application. I think that's something that obviously creates the ability to sell it internally. And then increasing task efficiency. When you add process to these things, and I mentioned the shift from a lower value to a higher value work, it can reduce not just the development time, but can also reduce the amount of mundane tasks that your internal employees are faced with. Avoiding the good idea paradox, which I say, where you have this good idea, but it never really comes to fruition. Again, you can really get your hands on a platform and start to build out what an application could look like, and bring it to fruition in a really meaningful way. And finally, empowering remote work. And I think this is a really obvious benefit. Not only because you can deploy these applications quickly and support the remote work environment, but as things shift and evolve, you can create those new applications to support what the new remote work looks like. At the very beginning of the pandemic, it might have been really focused on managing assets and doing IT requests. And that might not be the biggest priority now. Now you can shift into other things and figure out what the demands of your organizations and your citizens are, and do that in a very quick and accelerated way. So as I wrap up, I just wanted to give final thoughts around 4 key ways that you can be evolving. One, we've touched on low code, so I'm not going to go too deep in it, but I think leveraging low code to modernize is one that will not only make it a massive impact, but it's going to accelerate that impact, and it's something that's really exciting. 2, the adoption of an open hybrid cloud approach. One of the things that I hear from government customers all the time is the difficulty to shift completely to cloud. And I think my recommendation would be, especially as you deploy some of these platforms, is kind of a crawl, walk, run scenario where you can have a hybrid approach to your cloud environment, because you can't just rip and replace completely your legacy system, right? It's very much ingrained into the fabric of what you're doing. So it has to be a crawl, walk, run scenario. But I think that's one approach to do that I'd recommend. Leveraging commercially available technologies. I think this is so important because one of the reasons why governments are in the situation that they're in is because of the highly customized legacy systems that they've built. And we've gotten to a point, especially with out-of-the-box APIs and the different interoperabilities into systems, where that's not as necessary anymore. So you can leverage these commercially available technologies that make it easier to adapt to what you're looking to do, and shift from that legacy system and future-proof. So something that I think will certainly make it easier for your organization and more efficient for your organization moving forward. And finally, this isn't a technology recommendation, but this is one that I think is important, enhancing the role of government CIOs and the strategy leaders. I think all too often these decisions get made kind of with our heads down at just the IT challenges. And it's important to give some of those decisions back to the CIO and those leaders, because they ultimately hold those strategies and the vision for what the organization is looking to achieve over the next 5 to 10 years from a mission orientation perspective. So I think it's really important to ensure that strategy is really aligned in the technology decisions. And from an Opentext perspective, I'd really like to end on this type of slide, because it really shows you at the heart of all of it, really it's the information. It's turning the data into information and insights that allow you to evolve and adapt to what you're looking to get to, because ultimately it's all about mission outcomes. And we believe that it's the information at the heart of it. So thank you again for the opportunity to address you today, and I'll pass back to you, Ahmed.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for that insight. We will now move to our fireside chat with Mohammed Seer from Ernst & Young and Brian on how emerging technologies are shaping the modernization process. So I've got a couple of questions that I would like to ask you individually. And if you could maybe help us answer those questions for the audience, I would appreciate that. So for maybe first question, Mohammed, for you, in a recent survey, 90% of IT decision makers say that legacy systems are holding their organizations back, as we've just heard, from using digital innovation and making their journey more efficient. And over a third believe that legacy systems are a barrier to completing existing IT projects, and we see that many times and often in Qatar. Let me start with the first classic question. Should IT spend its time maintaining legacy investments or legacy systems, or creating new things? And how do they start the legacy modernization journey?
Thank you, and thank you for first inviting me to be here. It's a very interesting topic and top of mind for pretty much all governments in this region, particularly around the globe. Not an easy question to answer, but let me flip it to a different lens. Why are we even thinking about modernization of our IT landscape, and especially from a government perspective? It's all to do with our future-proofing ourselves. It's all to do with how can we adopt, adapt, and discover new business models. How can we become fit for the digital age that we are living in? Which, you call becoming digital. How can we as governments become digital? So if the driver, the narrative, or the ambition is to become digital, and that requires both business model change, but also taking a, what I call experience first led approach, we need to then answer the next question is, how can we achieve that with our current infrastructure that we have? And in most cases, it becomes impossible to achieve. And especially when you start to look at embracing emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, IoT, etc., then our legacy systems are not going to be necessarily ready to embrace those kind of technologies into the business. So for me, this is a bigger business question than even an IT question. And it's a question that our business leaders or in government need to answer. Do you want to become digital? Do you want to transform to different business models? Do you want to operate differently? If the answer is yes, which it will be in most cases, then we have no choice but towards moving towards a new architecture model, which shifts from the very the vertical kind of model of architecture across government to a horizontal model, but also a model which potentially is different than just we do it ourselves to one which is based on ecosystem partners. So you look at external providers and your own country helping to encourage digital businesses to become part of that ecosystem to deliver your mandate and your services.
Right.
The steps you go through could be many different, but I think just to rephrase the problem statement, we need to look at this from a business lens.
Very good. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. The second question that I had for you is we're seeing a lot of customers who are coming to us with the question of, we don't want to create any point-to-point system integrations anymore, or we want to start our legacy system modernization. What is your view on embracing new approaches through API connectivity to create an agile, future-proof architecture that supports a long-term strategy for legacy modernization?
Yeah, and I think it's quite linked to the first question you were talking about. And as the business models evolve and more we're doing is going to be online, and we need to move towards a model which is a lot easier to operate. An API is that protocol, you can say, a model that allows that to happen. Moving towards this API management approaches, even I see countries are starting to look at API marketplaces built by government so that they give connectivity to certain APIs for even private sector to connect to, and either it's for data call up or for triggering off services. So if you want to move to this kind of agile, scalable, better performance-led approach and give better experiences, you need to move to a much more a scalable model. An API model is much more scalable than point-to-point connectivity. For definitely that direction has to be taken by governments, in my opinion, and most of the governments are already moving in that direction.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Brian, I've got two questions for you. A direct question. What are the barriers that usually block the path to transformation?
I want to start by saying I couldn't agree with Mohammed more, and it's one of the reasons why I ended my opening the way that I did with my fourth point around giving more power back to the CIOs or the business leaders. I think it's understanding that strategy that is so necessary. You can't get to where you want to go without having that strategy in place and having that lead the direction. And I say that, and I come back to that because I actually would start off my answer to this question with something that's not as technology driven. I think one of the largest barriers that we see, there's three major ones. The first one is around competencies. You can throw as much technology as you want into the ecosystem, but if your employees don't know, one, why, and two, how to leverage it to be more efficient, then it's really gonna fall on for quote unquote deaf ears. So you're not gonna have the results that you ultimately are seeking to achieve. So I think leaders, if you really want an organization to become more digitally oriented, it has to really support its employees, has to provide programs that help them understand the new management approach, understand how to work with data in more meaningful ways. So I think that's one. Cultures too. And when I think about culture, I think about process. I was talking before about low code, and I think there's so many benefits to low code. It's why it's being adopted right now, but you can't, again, just layer technology into the problem without having the processes addressed to be fit for the technology as it comes in. So I think the organizational culture is two, but then you come to the technology piece, and really, we've been talking about it throughout this session. It's having the foundational elements in place that will allow you to modernize in the way that you want to, having the architecture in place that you can build upon. All of that is paramount, and if you don't have that in place, you're really going to take a lot of false starts.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And the final question for you, Brian, is so we've seen the advantages of having a multi-channel customer experience that balances the citizen, the cost, the policies, and the policy outcomes, I should say, during the Hukumi revamp last year. In your opinion, how is Opentext helping government agencies today in this domain?
So first of all, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so many advantages to it, but I would argue we're at a point now where it's prerequisite to how governments engage with their citizens. The Hukumi portal is a great example of not only how Opentext is working with governments, but it's a great example of how governments should be engaging with their citizens. I use this example when I'm meeting with governments all over the world because I think it is a really best-in-class example. But Opentext is working with global governments in some of the largest cities to do just this. We have a really meaningful relationship right now with the city of Madrid in Spain, where we're really evolving kind of what they're doing from a digital perspective to engage with their citizens. Anything from portal technologies, but also into how do you profile and build insights around your citizens? We've talked about future proofing, but how do we know what the future is going to hold for our citizens, what those needs are? I mentioned that a lot of this really a lot of this really stems from having information at the center of what you're doing. And this is one way that the city of Madrid is doing that, is leveraging the information that they have, leveraging the AI technology that Opentext provides to be able to understand where their citizen needs are evolving into. So I think that's really where a lot of the value is going to come as you look to support them moving forward. Now, obviously, no city, no entity could have predicted a COVID pandemic, but I think what some of them did was put themselves in a situation where they had the infrastructure in place to be able to pivot and adapt. And I think that's really where we are now. There's some things you can predict, some things you can't, but for the ones you can't, ensuring that you're resilient enough to be agile in those moments. And that's really where the future of government is going.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Now we will move to the live demonstration of the Opentext Digico framework, which is a full-fledged an e-government or e-services platform, and it will be presented by our senior solution consultant, Gerrit. As I mentioned earlier, Gerrit has been involved in all of our digital transformation projects and the likes that I mentioned, the Muwazana, the Hukumi, and etc. So Gerrit, over to you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Hopefully you can share, you can see my screen just to verify that. Ahmed,
yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, we can. We can see.
Perfectly. All right, thank you, everybody. A quick introduction into the Opentext DigiGov framework. The Opentext DigiGov solution is built using the renowned Opentext AppWorks low-code platform. The low-code platform is Opentext development framework that allows the development of turnkey solutions, with limited IT resources. Displayed at the moment is the DigiGov homepage. The homepage provides the case administrator access to various DigiGov modules. These modules, as an example, the case management module provides a case worker to have a 360 view of various cases within the organization. Cases are captured from various channels. These include citizen or customer-facing portals, emails, mobile applications, and even document capturing solutions like the Opentext Intelligent Capture solution, just to name a few. The workflow management module allows case administrators to easily create and define specific business processes, driving the lifecycle of each case type. Of course, SLA is always important, and the SLA module defines service levels and escalations for each case workflow at each stage and each task of that specific case. The task list management module provides a flexible task checklist to be completed against each case lifecycle stage by an assigned case worker. Team management module allows case administrators to create, define, and allocate roles against case types. Users are then assigned case roles, as an example, a case worker or a case administrator. It is very important that e-service cases have a content repository or a digital wallet where case documents are stored and managed. The documents module defines the case document types and the folder hierarchy for each case type. I will demonstrate that in the next few minutes. Lastly, on the right-hand side, to allow for quick migration from legacy solutions in your organization to your new DigiGov solution, we provide migration tools to bulk migrate users, roles, cases, content from various legacy systems to the new DigiGov solution. So let's have a look at the DigiGov eServices case management module. I'm currently logged in as a case worker, and I've got a view of all the cases assigned to various users within the organization. The landing page is divided in a few windows. The first window lists all the e-service cases assigned to me. as well as the current stage of the case. The next window, of course, is all the tasks that has been assigned to me as a caseworker. I've got a list of cases assigned to the team that I'm part of. And then, of course, this window is an indication of all the new cases that has been generated by either your portal or by an email or a mobile app. And these are all unassigned cases. Let me open up a specific case, and this is a new case, and I'm currently accessing this as a case administrator. So when I'm opening this unassigned case, the case administrator does have a view of all the relevant information related to this case. This case administrator notices, yeah, this request is from a citizen that would like to have an extension to his villa. So he really requires a permit to allow extension to his villa. Okay. The case requester has also submitted some documents, which is stored in the document wallet for the specific case. The administrator has also got details about the case requester, like his contact details. So as a case administrator, I know the type of case, how important is this case, and I can now assign this case to a specific case worker within a case team. So let me go and assign a case worker. Now, of course, all these user roles and user IDs is all integrated into your Active Directory. I'm going to select the permits and licensing team because this case is related to a permit. And I can select a specific user, which is part of this team. I'm going to select Barbara to be the case worker for this specific case. In addition now to assigning the case worker, what I would also like to do is make a note to the case worker that this is a very high priority case and needs to be resolved very quickly. So I'm going to use the Notes tab and add some notes to the case worker. Okay. Please treat as ASAP. Okay, so I'm adding a specific note. The case administrator is happy with all the details, and I can now submit the updates of this case to the DigiGov platform. We can now see that the case have now moved into the next stage of the life cycle, where the case has now been assigned to a specific team and to a specific caseworker. Let me go back to the caseworker's homepage. I can now see the caseworker's homepage that I have been assigned this new case. So under my cases, I can see this permit for extension to the villa is now assigned to me. Opening up the case, I can have as a caseworker a 360 view of all the information related to that case. I can look at the notes that the case administrator have sent me, and I can reply to this note and say, sure, I will make this priority. And of course, I've got also the decision to revoke this case back. In other words, maybe I'm going on leave, or I am not the correct person. I can revoke it and it will go back into the pool or as an unassigned case, or I can forward the case to another caseworker. I am happy with this case and I can start processing this case. Okay. Now we can see the case has been moved into the next stage, where the stage of the life cycle is in progress. As a caseworker, I've got various tabs. One of the tabs is that I've got specific tasks assigned to me related to that case. So the first task is to review the request. So I'm looking at the request, I've got the details of the request, and I can open up this specific task. And I can say, well, yes, okay. Okay, so I am completing the task and submitting the task back into the system as completed. Going back to the case itself, the case overview, I have an indication now that there is a new task that has been assigned to me to validate that all the required documents is attached to the case. Before doing that, I also would like to collaborate with the requester. This is Gary Green, and I've got his email address. Typically in today's world, I'm going to use Outlook to do that. But what we would like to do is to make sure that all the collaboration related to that specific case is contained within a single platform. So I do have, apart from the notes that I've already used, I've also got an email collaboration built into the solution. So here I've got an inbox, an outbox, and a draft box. I'm going to select, I would like to send an email now back to the case requester. The case administrator has got access to email templates. In this case, I've got a email template which will populate the case, the email heading as well as the email body with related information. I'm going to select that, and the email is already populated with the required data, and I can send that email to the case requester. Now the case requester is probably using Outlook. So here I've got Outlook open, and as a case requester, I can now see the email has arrived, and I'm going to reply and say, and remind the caseworker that this is an urgent case. Okay, and I'm going to send that back. As the case worker, it is important to make sure that all email collaborations are in a single window. So going back to my case and just refreshing my inbox, I can now see that the email from the case worker, from the case originator, has been received. I can open up the email. I can then, of course, reply to the email, forward it to somebody else. So I've got the standard email collaboration built into the solution. Going back to the tasks, I have to make sure that all the documents are validated. So having a permit request requires some documents. So to view all the documents, I'm of course going to go to the documents wallet or the case wallet. And here I've got an overview of all the documents related to that specific request. Now, the document wallet folder hierarchy contains a few folders. I've got some case requester documents where the case requester has submitted or uploaded some documents. Because I need to extend my villa with maybe another room, I have to submit a land survey. I have to submit a list of materials that I'm going to use. Also, I need to submit maybe a floor plan of the new design. The Digico framework supports various types of document types. As you can see over here, I've got PDF documents, but I've got an AutoCAD drawing. As a case worker, of course, I don't have AutoCAD installed in my machine. So not to worry, the Digico framework does have a built-in document viewer. So over here, I do have a preview tab where I can select the document that I would like to view, and it will open up in the preview tab. I can just maximize this tab to have a better view of the document. Let me just change the background a little bit to white. In addition, just to viewing the document, this permit user, a case worker, can see that, yeah, there are some issues with the drawing itself. I can do some annotations or markups on this drawing. And I can say, well, sure, I've got some annotation tools. Okay. Let me choose one of the tools. I'm going to select maybe this little tool over here, and I'm going to mark a section of the drawing. I can also add some text to the drawing itself. Okay. And add that to the specific drawing. So this is a new annotation that I can save back, which is a layer on top of on top of the drawing itself. Okay. Okay. Let me minimize my viewer again. I can also view other drawings. So the list of materials, again, I can look at the list of materials and make sure all the materials comply with the requirements. Good. Great. Let me go back to my tasks to see what I need to do. Validate all the documents. I'm going to open up the task. And I can now complete the task. I can claim the task. All documents are okay. And I can complete the task. The next stage is probably to issue the permit for that specific requester. So let me go back to my tasks. And the next task is issue a permit. So the permit, again, I can upload the permit to the case document or wallet. So here in the case documents, I can simply drag and drop the permit. Now, again, the permit could be auto-generated, or the permit could be generated from another solution, but I would like to add that to the case document wallet. Okay, and the document is uploaded as part of the case. Lastly, what I would like to do is maybe send this specific document back to the initiator. Again, I will create a new email, the case status selected, but in this case, I would also like to attach the required permit that has been issued for this specific request. So again, open up my case documents. Here is the permit. I'm going to select it and then send that off to the case requester. Again, the case requester will receive that in his Outlook, and as the case worker, I can now choose to resolve this case and complete the case itself. So now the case has been resolved, and the life cycle of the case has moved to the next stage. Lastly, if required, I can say close or archive the case, and the case has then been completely closed. As a case requester, I will find either the update as well as the request for the permit has been issued and sent to me via an email. Going back to the caseworker homepage, I can see that this specific case is now being closed, and I do have a few other more cases to work on. Great. Thank you, everybody, for your attention during the last few minutes. I hope you have a better insight of the benefits of using Opentext Digico framework hosted on the renowned Opentext AppWorks low-code application development framework. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate that. That was a very nice and smooth demo. Let's move to our customer showcase. Or I would like to introduce to Sebastian John from Qatar Foundation and Mr. Sami El-Kadi from Ministry of Transport. They will now share some insights on the importance of modernization and how that has helped them in their individual organizations. So welcome, gentlemen. Let me start by asking you a couple of questions. Maybe if we can, Sebastian, are you there? I can't see you on the video.
Yeah, am I audible, gentlemen?
Very audible. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, my camera, some problem with my camera, so it's not connecting. Anyways.
No problem. Sebastian, the first question that I wanted to ask you is, what is the culture needed for digital transformation, and especially when you are at such a large organization as Qatar Foundation?
Good question, Ahmed. So, thanks. So, you know, a little bit on the background of the organization. So we are, you know, as you know, we are into education, science, community development. So we have, different varieties of customers. So as a culture, I mean, the objective is to meet the customers' needs. That is one of the most important approach that we follow, a customer-centric approach. So the challenge here is that we have different kinds of users who has different priorities. And to name a few examples is that we have millennials who are coming to workforce. We have students who are trying to educate themselves. So it's very important that when we do transformation, we understand the overall objective of the organization or the strategy of the organization, align the strategy with the transformation goals. I mean, most often this is where we take a technology-centric approach, which we've tried and we haven't got anywhere. So this is one of the most important things. The second thing is leadership. So those are the two wheels that drive this transformation. The way I see it, having a leadership that supports innovation, collaboration, and I would say somebody who is willing to take that risk. We have this culture called fail fast. If you do something, let's see the result. If it's not lying, let's go back to the drawing board and learn. Do it quick. So these are the two things that I would like to have to say on this.
Understood. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Sami, earlier on, we heard from Mohammed Seer that the application transformation journey is beyond just technology and strategy. In your case, what is the business case for application modernization, and in particular within Ministry of Transport?
Yeah, Ahmed, before we go through the business case inside MOT, I just need to clarify a couple of points. First, application modernization always a challenge for application leaders, and always application leaders struggle to develop a successful business case when it comes to modernizations. Modernization, by definition itself, is a practice to upgrade or to update an application to a newer computing approach. For that reason, it was a challenge even for MOT to address, or MOT, sorry, because they changed the name literally, to address the challenges in the current applications, and sometimes into digitally transform some type of businesses from types of business like construction engineers or construction activity, infrastructure, road activity. This kind of stuff have been managed in a legacy type of business. The need of modernization came from digital transformation itself. And we all know pandemic have put a lot of pressure to accelerate the digital transformation movement, and one of the major initiatives in this movement is application modernization. The need of application modernization itself came from the need to have more efficient systems, more efficient applications that go within the same or utilize the same the capabilities and the resources available in an organization to obtain the optimum value within a situation or a crisis, as an initiative from our side. To address a business case in our organization, we know that the business case has 4 critical sections. First of all, the problem statement. As you know, board of directors or even construction engineers, road engineers are not technical or not looking into a technological explanation or a kind of technological difficulty for them. For that, an easy explanation is required to address the situation or address the current situation or current state, and to achieve a value to targeted state. In our business case, we focused on the 4 sections. First of all, the problem statement, technology migration, which drawing a direct correlation between transition from current state to target state, as well as results or the benefits for the organization as whole. Of course, in between touching the current business processes and sustainability factors is most critical for us, and also how technology can improve the area of the non-technological businesses like road or engineering or the maritime as well, because the MOT also has a maritime activity as well. Also, we have to address a project description, project description in as well to be detailed as much as possible, in the same time to be clear, because at the end we have to address it to or get the buy-in of board of directors to get well understanding of what we are trying to achieve from this result. Most of the time, the mistake made by most of IT modernization proposals is to push for every application to be modernized immediately. So we divided. This is the rule of the strategy, is to prioritize the portfolios that we have and try to push forward to have most critical application, especially the ones related with the internal activity or internal process itself. And this is the first milestone that we are pushing forward. Second, to do a cost benefit analysis from the value of retaining a legacy scattered solutions, or consolidating all of this application into a more comprehensive, centralized platform that able to do the required target state.
Understood. Thank you very much for that. And I like the way that you've categorized that in 4 major pillars to focus on. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Sami. John, coming back to you and what we've just heard and earlier to your question, I want to come back to, you mentioned that you obviously the community that you serve, citizens, students, teachers, the science and technology parks, and etc. How are you addressing enabling for example, the citizens or the students or the teachers to be part of your application modernization, especially when existing legacy systems are already in place?
Yeah, complex real life problems, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So so we came up with something called a pace layered approach. I don't know if you've heard it before or not. So so the most important thing is to break this complex problem into small problems, I would say. So that's what we call it, pace layered approach. So what we're trying to do is, as you said, legacy, it's been running for 25 years. ERP is like 25 years. We have the typical back office call centers and all those things. So what we're trying to do is what is the most impactful for the customer? Start from there, and which obviously is the UX layer, which everybody interacts to. So that's where we have adapted Opentext and things like that. Softwares like that, which are enabling us to wrap the service, and then render it in a much more friendly way. So a lot of abstraction happening at the UI layer. So that is where we're working on that, and then gradually move to the other layers as we progress. So the UI, as the UI is transformed, we are also trying to work on APIs and to connect these back offices together to provide a unified experience to the customer. So it is a 3 to 5 years goal. we are doing the phase-led approach, and the value that using low-code platform is that the agility that it brings to rapidly deploy these applications, which have been built over so many years. So many services that we want to, which are heavily used by the customers, we want to turn around faster. Providing that abstraction on that.
Understood. Thank you very much. And I think one of the, I've been working with Qatar Foundation and yourself for the last 5-6 years, I believe, and the journey and the vision, the strategy started and was identified 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And what I really like about Qatar Foundation is the fact that a lot of there are management changes that are consistently happening, but the strategy on the application modernization is consistent, maintained, and they know long-term where they want to be. Sami, let me come back to you. I've got two questions for, I've got one question for both of you. Sami, within your experience, which teams should be involved in application modernization when we're planning and executing the actual project? So, John just talked about a very long and lengthy strategy. From your perspective in your organization, who's involved?
In our organization, actually everybody's involved in the organization, in the IT department at least, and some of business sponsors and some of business stakeholders are required to be part of the modernization cycle itself. In the team itself, as a team structure, you will find major rules in our team, and this major rules is it's a must for any successful modernization project. As an example, somebody takes the leadership and the responsibility to be a product owner for what we are building. An architect as well. You need somebody to be able to have the technological understanding and at the same time understand the business well. Also, you need legacy system experts. You need somebody to understand what was exists already to avoid any mistake from trying to scrap the whole thing. As well, other rules like modern technology experts. Of course, if you are modernizing, you need somebody to be able to maintain and retain what you built.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. John, back to you. We are seeing organizations in Qatar that are facing at the moment a very difficult decision making on how to proceed and how to go forward in order for them to meet the Qatar national vision. What common mistakes have you seen or experienced that organizations make as they approach modernizing their legacy systems?
Yeah, so to be, I think one of my I went through the same exercise. Trying to do too many things at the same time. It is one of the I think one of the gravest mistakes that most of the organization do. Launch a transformation program with as I said. Try to do the back office, the infrastructure, containerization. There are a lot of things going on at the same time, which especially when the environment is quite old. So I would suggest caution and then have this problem broken down into pieces. If you're looking at infrastructure or virtualization or containerization, focus on that, then move on to the next layers and so on. And what is the most impactful, as mentioned before, what is the most impactful to the customer? And this is also one grave mistake. Why are we doing transformation? The systems are running fine. Whom are we transforming for? So very important that it is aligned with the organization goals on what it means. Where is the organization moving? And so we don't transform it just because the systems are old. It's working. If it's meeting the purpose, it there is no need. If it's old and supported, there shouldn't be any issues. So I think it's very important to keep the the eye on the ball and see what is the organization goal, and then what are the priorities from the organization, and then break it down into pieces. What is the most important for the organization? Try to address that, and then work your way backwards towards the more IT-led problems, which are infrastructure and so on and so forth. So this is why my humble request.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Sami, the final question for you. And I know probably you will probably like this particular question because there are huge datas that you deal with at MOTC. So the question is, or now Minister of Transport actually, the question is, how should organizations leverage their existing data when they are approaching application modernization?
Okay. In simple answer, organization can manage the complexity through a data-driven application modernization strategy. Doing this actually is an effective way to start with kind of let's say a kind of inventory for what you have, what data you have already, what capability you in place, and from this let's say inventory, also and taking in consideration and account how to fit within the business over even over time or over the size of amount of data that you are getting. Also cloud native applications, which is some of the cloud application natives is monolith in type, also producing a lot of data that need to be considered. Organizations need to take consideration of the capability to drive effective application modernization while using an approach for data-driven or data-driven approach itself. Yet, simply collecting data isn't enough due to velocity and volume of data gathered by cloud native technologies as well. I think by time or with near real-time mirror images of application, different teams can also rapidly see a performance bottlenecks and the issues related to or occurred related to the amount of data that they need to process. A need for AI and machine learning capability is one of the advantages or one of the capabilities that as well organization can seek to analyze or creating fragments from this data to be able to understand more about the data is being collected over time. And also having a data strategy itself is an asset to any organization to achieve a data or to prioritize the data itself and classify the data itself. It's something that organizations need to also consider. After achieving all of this, I think using the data itself to drive the ongoing optimization also will be more efficient, more effective for the continuity of any organization.
Thank you very much for that, Sami. I appreciate that. Akinola, I don't have any further questions for the gentleman.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Please, if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll be happy to take them. And also thank you, Sami, as well as Mohammed and Jared for the session. Note that if you would like to engage post-event with the team from Opentext, we'll be happy to connect with them and to take it further from here. I think, Ahmad, if we can take closing remark or maybe final thought from Sebastian and Sami, and then you can also give us a closing wrap up. I think that would be great.
Okay, perfect. Sami, Sebastian, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Do you wanna wait for any questions?
Yeah, I'm actually looking for while you do that. No questions at the moment.
Okay.
No questions.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much. Well, we appreciate your time, everyone. I hope the session was insightful and gave you a little bit of information about what we offer and how we actually operate within the government of Qatar and then the type of projects that we've assisted. Sorry, there is a question?
No, go ahead.
Okay. If anyone is interested in, please reach out to us and we'll assist you with a follow-up action. I don't have anything else to say. We appreciate your time again, and thank you very much.
So thank you everyone for joining, and thanks to the speakers, and thanks for all the thoughts you shared. And we look forward to future opportunities to have you all. Thank you everyone once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, bye.